Well, in the previous lecture, we created the floor and added some material to it. In this case, we had a floor. By using the A-plane, we were able to come out with a floor with the right material or texture attached to it. So in this case, we have a floor of dimension which has been scaled to 10 meters by 10 meters with a depth of 1 meter. So from here, you can see how our floor really looks like. So I'll press on S to move away from the floor so we see exactly how it is. Unfortunately, whenever we develop 3D scenes or games and stuff like that, if we have characters in there, it's always very difficult, or it's not the best to have these white spaces around the scene. Because if a character, if we should wear the VR headset and we are located here and we move very close to the tip of this particular plane, which is the floor, we will be disoriented in one way or the other, mainly because we believe we are standing on the floor, but just beneath us at this particular point, if we should make a mistake, we will toggle and probably fall. So to avoid this disorientation and discomfort for characters or for us whenever we wear the VR headset, we have to find a way to limit the character to a specific space where the character will not get the chance to see the outside or the white spaces for him to get disoriented. So how do we do this? We'll start by going through that. In this case, we are going to introduce what we call the sky, and also in this particular video we would bring in the sky primitive in here, and we'll try to come out or add some sort of 3D 360 picture that will make us feel more comfortable in our scene whenever we probably wear our headset. Now, Diorama is one of the ways in which to push your objects or push your characters into a limited space so that they are confined at a place that makes it more comfortable for them. So from Google, and we have a model representing a scene with a 3D object dimensional figure, either in a miniature or a large scale museum exhibit. And these are examples of diorama. So in that case, you can see this is a diorama where the objects that we have in here have been confined in a specific location, so they don't get to topple over or see the white spaces, which would eventually disorient them. So there are lots of dioramas that are available. So in our case, we are going to use the A sky, and we have a picture in there which we're going to incorporate and make it more easier for us. So those that are interested in getting some of these, you can always Google and get them downloaded and use in your projects. Now, let me still scale it up down again so that we can see the floor. Obviously, the light source is somewhere here because there is some sort of reflection which is located somewhere in our scene. So now let's try and create our sky. So this time around, I'll begin by, we already have our floor. So let's create our sky, which is a sky. But of course, from how we have always been doing things, we always start with comments so that we know exactly what we were talking about when we create those scenes. Now let me try and shift this one to the right a little so I have enough space. Now in the texture folder, as you see here, there is a sky image over here, and in fact there are different types of sky images that are available in here, but which we might have probably include to make it more easier for our work. So we're going to use the clear sunny. So in the same way, just like how we did most of our things, in the asset management, we're going to add this particular image, which is going to be IMG, and the source for that particular image is also in the textures folder. And within the textures folder, we have an image called Clear Sunny Sky. So that is what we're going to use to form more like a diorama for our floor, so that anytime we have our objects closer to the end of the floor, they don't feel disoriented. Of course, I told you that the ID, the alternate text in here is optional. So in that case, all we need to do is to create an ID and give it some ID that makes it so clear for us to use. So in that case, we're going to use clear, maybe sunny, maybe sky as the ID for this particular picture. And of course, as I said, this video is centered on adding a sky and probably creating a 365 or a 360 degree image that makes us feel we are in some sort of environment, which is quite nice. So I'm going to include that I'm going to include a panorama 360 image, which we would eventually use at the end of this lecture, to have a 360 degree view of an area, which will make us feel more comfortable and also make the scene look more realistic. Now to do that, I'm going to just type in AMG, and of course the image is found in textures, and it's a 360 degrees image, and within that there are lots of them. Let me see if I can get the right one that I want to use. I would want to use the old city. So right from here, I will use the old, yes, so I'll choose this one as the image that I'll use. And of course, I'm going to give it an ID, which I'm going to call it 360 panorama. 360 panorama image. So yeah, so now I have all these in my asset management system, so I can call on any of them at any point in time. So first of all, let's try and create our A sky. But before that, let me reduce this so that we see how our page really looks like. So this is how the plane looks like on the bare floor with our white spaces around. So let's create an A sky primitive. So an A sky primitive, and just within the A sky primitive, we can have we've already loaded the image within the A sky primitive, so we can have the source also called out, and by the source we already have the ID created, which is clear, which we have as the clear sunny. So once we have this one selected and we have it saved, you can see, let's try and refresh the page, and let's go back again. You can see we have the sky around, we have our plane, and within it we have our sky in there. So now from here you can see it doesn't really look very realistic, although we can see our plane, which is within an environment. Of course, the sky has already been created in here. Let's check it out from the VR mode. So this is how it is. It looks like and that is the sun. We have our plane in here. It still does not really look so realistic. So how do we make it more realistic? So in this case, let's try and find a way. You can see from here that before we had the sun shining somewhere at this particular angle, but of course this is where the sun is actually shining, so we expect to see the sun somewhere here. So now let's see if it relates to what we already know. From here you can see our sun is somewhere here, but instead of it being somewhere here, so we can find a way to rotate the sun to this side so that it looks a little more closer. it looks a little more nicer. And looking at it, you can find that our plane looks so small within the universe because of the sky. So let's try and find a way to scale up our plane. The sky is more or less about 5,000 meters away. So we can find a way to scale up our our plane. So in doing that, we can change the scale for our plane from 10 to probably 10,000 for the x-axis, and also 10,000 for the y-axis. So that you can see, if we save and refresh the page, you can see our scene is looking a little more realistic compared to previous. It looks a little more realistic compared to previous, but of course we need to find a way to also repeat the images that we have. This particular image, the floor image that we have that is the bricks that we have on our A-plane. So let's increase that one from 5 to probably 5,000, and of course we will increase the side to also 5,000. So if we do that, then it means we have to also do the same thing for the normal texture repeats. That is the normal map. So we have to increase that one to also 5,000 to make it look more realistic and more nice in our scene. So let me refresh the page so you can see our floor now looks more nicer, and you can see there's the reflection. The sun should be reflected somewhere here. So let's see again if indeed our sun is reflecting at the angle, that's at the right angle that we expect it to. Unfortunately, our sun is located somewhere here. We have to find a way to bring it here so that it doesn't look like our sun is shining at the wrong place. So let's try and bring the sun here so that it reflects on this particular side. So now let's add some sort of rotation of our clear sunny sky image. So I'll have a rotation for it. So rotation, this time around, let me indent it nicely. So I have rotation, and of course it will take in these values. I'll bring it here. So if you are rotating it, let's rotate it on the y-axis. So let's say 30. Sorry. Let's see, 30 and 0. Let's see if it's making any sense. Let's see. All right, so our sun reflection is here. Our sun is getting closer to the reflection. Let's rotate it again to maybe 60. Okay, our sun is getting closer, so probably 64 or 65. All right, so it looks more realistic now that our sun is being reflected here. You can see, well, it makes sense to have our sun reflecting this way. So in this case, we've been able to take care of the horizon, and we have our sky now reflecting very well, casting some sort of brightness on the floor. And apart from that, we've also increased our floor. So if you have an object, or we wear our VR and we are within this particular scene, of course we will not really feel so disoriented in a way. So I will press S to still come out of the scene, so we see what is really going on. Let's see if this is quite okay. All right, of course it's about 5,000. That's quite huge. That's quite huge. So now let's find a way to probably we've been able to have our scene now recognizing the sun and the sky, so there is no disorientation in here. So now let's right now, as we've been able to have our A sky, it's working perfectly for us. Let's see if we can have a 360-degree panorama image that will make us feel we are in a nice environment over here. So, all right, so we've been able to delve into these. But of course, just a minute, let me see if I can add some other things onto our scene. So we have 5,000 in here. We've been able to include some beautiful. All right, so now let's comment all these out, the sky and the ground. And this time around, let's try and add a 360 image. So I'm commenting all these. Let's try and add a 360 image in our scene to see if it will work. Okay, so I'm commenting these ones out. All right, so now still within our, okay, this is still the A plane. Let me just bring it here so that we come out of the A plane. So this is not so important. Let me just remove it. All right, so now we still want to have a 360 image, which we already have in here, which is the old city center. So how do we include it? That is a 360 panorama image. Let's include it this way. So we still have to create an A sky, but of course, before that, let's just have this, which is a 360 degrees panorama image. So to do that, we will start with our A sky. And once we have our A sky, we can now reference our object, which is the source. So in this case, the source is a texture. It's in textures, and it is also in a 360. So textures. In fact, let me put it in quotes to make it even better. So this is in textures, and we have our 360 image. And within a 360, we have the old city. That is a way of referencing it. But this time around, I want us to use, since we've already placed it in the asset management system, now let's just call it by ID, which is going to be this. So we just use the hash sign and we'll type in the right ID in there for it to take effect. So as you can see, this is a 360 panorama image which we have referenced in our work, in our page or in our scene. Let us go into a 360 3D environment. So you can see we have a 360 in a 360 environment. So if you should wear a headset right now, you should be able to feel a little more comfortable somewhere in the scene and be able to move around and see objects in there. But of course, that does not mean we can't create objects in here. We can still create some objects. We can create an A box in here with a color, and probably let's see if we can do that. Let me just go out of this and let's see if we can create an A scene in here or A box in here. Let me see. So let me come somewhere here. So let's say I create an A box. Of course, it has a color of maybe maybe red. Okay, so we have our box in here. We have not given it any position, so we can give it a position. Let me indent it correctly. Position. If we want the position to be probably, let's say 2, 4, let's say 2, 1, 1. So we can still see our box in here within our scene. Of course, you can also still put it in quotes. That should also work. All right, so we have our box in here. If you go into the VR, you can see our A box. We can go around it. We can have our box in here. We can go around it. You can see. So that is our scene. This is our objects in here. You can go around the box and see what the box can do. It's trying to go around the whole scene. Of course, we can have our image coming in and out. Yeah, so this is a panorama scene. As you can see, this is how it looks like. We can have the object coming closer to us. Yes, we can go around the objects and do some other few things in the scene. All right, so that is about having to create an A sky and also include a 360 image in our work. So I expect you to download some of them. I also have some other images that are also available. Let me see if I can also preview some of them in here for you to also see. There is another one also called Panorama in Courtyard. So let me just activate that one and let's see how it will look like. So instead of this one, this particular image, let me call a different image in here. So that is Panorama Courtyard, so this one. So I'll save this. If I refresh this page, we should see, I hope I've not broken any part of the code. Yes, let me close this one. I think I broke this part and we close this side. Yeah, so that is the Panorama Courtyard. So you can see this 360 degree image has been created and we have our objects in there in the same way. So this helps us, this helps the person or the individual wearing the headset not get disoriented but confined to a specific location, unlike having to create the floor and him feeling he's probably going to fall down and the rest. So in that case, we can find a way to create this one. So that is the environment that we see ourselves in here. All right.